Attention human, prepare yourself for the Double Pipcast.
Welcome back to the Double Pipcast, where almost every week we catch you up on the goings-on within the world of Transformers, the trading card game. Today with me, I have Cam and Sean, as always, the dynamic trio.
Yo, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
And with that said, we're going to just kick right into it. We wanted to talk today about the effect of the competitive scene on the casual gameplay for your average, everyday Transformers, the card game, lover of the IP. Cam, you had a take on that and how they impact the meta and the gameplay and average parents buying cards for their children?
Yeah, so the thing that made me think of this was the recent banning of multi-mission gear, a card from Wave 1, for reasons we can get into later. And anytime there's anything at all, any type of announcement, it seems like to me that there's a huge uproar, positive, negative, indifferent, from people around our age that have played a ton of different card games, and these folks don't have I don't know, it seems like their stakes in it. It's more of a competitive hobby for them. And to me, when the Transformers trading card game was first released, the message was, fun for all, very quick action, robots fighting robots. It's an IP that's based in a cartoon that, yes, many people enjoyed in the early 80s, but there's also kids who are watching Transformers now and are getting into this. And, what do they see when they first jump onto the Facebook group, when they first jump onto Twitter or anywhere or the YouTube? YouTube's very popular. They listen to a YouTube video. What is the first impression that they get?
What I would say, just personally, because I kind of came into that kind of situation, but I, as an older CCG player, kind of last year when I got into it, I just found them on clearance at GameStop for like half off, 75% off. Got the decks, bought some packs, went on the Facebook. Of course, it wasn't as competitive as now because it was just Wave 1 was still out and Combiners was about to come out. But I didn't really there wasn't really a competitive scene, and the meta decks really, you had the Optimus and you had Blue Bugs. That was about it. But it still didn't sway me from like getting more into the game. But I wasn't looking to get into a big competitive scene anyways. I just wanted to have fun. But I can see how, like, as a brand new player as a TCG, it would be a little overwhelming. But looking at other games, let's say they wanted to get into Magic the first time, then they go on to the Magic Facebook groups or something, or the Magic Reddit groups, it's going to be 10 times worse than it is the Transformers TCG. So I would say it would probably be overwhelming for a new person, but it would probably be less overwhelming than other card games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, the other big guys that have such a big competitive scene already. At least the competitive scene in Transformers, it's new. It's still only, 2 seasons, 2 expansions we've really had organized play. Mm-hmm. So, there's still a lot of birth pangs. I was there at the beginning of the competitive play scene for Magic and everything. That was like, hectic. You had, type 1, type 1.5, type 2, type 2 limited, type 1 limited. It was insane. So I would say it's probably less overwhelming than other games, but it's still going to be a little overwhelming, especially when you just have this competitive scene booming, and it is mm-hmm. gaining in popularity. You can at least see that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you guys feel free to stop me anytime you want, but I'm going in, right? So the thing about this games in general, right? When's the last game that you've ever seen that's catered exclusively towards a casual or, friendly type of child-friendly audience that did not have a competitive scene and lasted, right? This would be the same, type of from a business standpoint or from a exposure to the marketplace standpoint is, let's say, your NBA, your NFLs, right? We all know that nobody's playing pickup basketball, every weekend is going to the NBA, right? It ain't going to happen. However, they do look at that and say, okay, there's a reason that, I believe in this country, I think it's like football and basketball are the most popular sports because they are shown the most and they have a competitive, a highly publicized competitive scene that is in depth and has a bit of something for everybody. And then even breaking it down into your local, hey, my kids like, Yao Ming or Tim Duncan or, Manu Ginobili or, the Admiral or any any of the greats, right? They can recognize that and then they get into playing the sport, right? Not at a competitive level, but just saying, hey, that guy over there looks cool. That thing looks cool. There's something happening. I want to go play that, right? Why do I bring that up? Because it transitions us into this game, right? If this game doesn't have, in my opinion, if this game doesn't have a public competitive scene, then this game is going to die like all of the other games that did not have a public competitive scene. I mean, you could say that with, I think it was the card captor. There's so many of them. That fighting versus thing, that Street Fighter, what was that, Mortal Kombat
Versus
game?
system?
Not verse system, because that was slightly different, but it was similar to, it was like fighting something. I don't know, but it had like Street Fighter characters and Mortal Kombat characters and Soul Calibur characters. I mean,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly.
They kind of have that with the Godzilla. It's compatible with another game or something too.
So, and this is just me. I'm not picking on any specific game or system or whatever. I'm just saying you can go through the history of games that have lasted and games that came up, were popular for 2 seconds and then died, right? And I guarantee you can tie them all the games that have lasted. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Every game that has lasted has a structured competitive format at high level competition, a high level competitive play. And if you want this game to last, that's what you're going to have. Now, going to the trolls and the people on the interwebs who are upset about X, Y, and Z, you just gotta, that's just part of the game, for whatever reason. I don't think anybody ever gets away from that. But, as far as these bans go, bans typically are, I think the game is doing well, right? There's only, 3 bans in 2 years. So, I mean, it's not
1 year. Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah.
It's so, well, I guess that doubles here, but it's not awful, right? I mean, I've seen it, seen better, seen worse, but it's not terrible. It's not like every single week I'm going to come in and there's going to be a new ruling or there's going to be a card that gets banned and there's going to be no stability. I think that they're trying their best to keep that stability. And all of that is to say, if they do that well, if they structure the competitive scene well, then it's going to be good for the people who buy those cards for their kids, because the game won't be around. The value on the cards, the expected value, I'm sorry, let's just go, use the terms, right? The EV for the pulls that they get will make the kids happier. Even if they don't realize it initially, they'll know, hey, I've got, this Transformer, I pulled an Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend and it's worth something, right? Not necessarily, it's just worth nothing, right? Because it's garbage. No. It's like they're maintaining value and protecting their investment on this, which in turn becomes good for the game, which in the long term becomes good for the casual player who gets cards from their parents. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and there's definitely a population out there, because I was one of the guys or kids, I guess, when Pokemon came out, when it first came out. we just played at school. We played, at each other's houses. We put them in binders, and that was it. There was no. We went to Toys R Us, and there was an organized league and stuff like that. But even that was harmless fun, right? So there's definitely a population of players and people that have purchased, consumers that have purchased this, that have no idea about organized play, that have no idea about any of the social media presence, for better or for worse, that comes along with any game, let alone this one. They play in their own microcosm. It's a Wednesday night family game night thing, whatever, bonding time between parent and kid. So there's definitely probably most of the population that I'm speaking about maybe being put off by the hyper competitiveness, which is beneficial for the longevity of the game, which you make a good point, Brandon. If it's in the conversation every month or so, there's some sort of event, there's a reason to have folks show up for money games or prize support tournaments at local gaming stores, awesome. But if the appeal of the game, one of the pillars, and I don't want to put words in the design team's mouth, but if one of the pillars of this game is to be approachable and to serve the target audience, what is the competitive scene's role in making sure that it's not extremely off-putting to want to know more about the game? Hey, what are these rules like? Look it up, nerd. Hey, what does this deck look like? Or hey, can somebody clarify the ruling on this card? Me and my son were playing last night, and it's like, this is posted somewhere. It's just that really abrasive nature that may or may not just be perception. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I think that because I've had a similar experience with that, like rules and understanding the rulings. And for whatever reason, this game, maybe they're developing it now, but it doesn't have a comprehensive rule book, right? Which is something, a in-depth comprehensive rule like Magic does. That would be, the easiest solution, right? So for those who don't know, Magic has comprehensive rules, and it has an encyclopedia database of basically every ruling for every card, right? So you can go and say, okay, I have a question about, Yawgmoth's Will, or I've got a question about, Cantrip, whatever. It doesn't matter. You go over there, they'll give you, you can look up that card specifically, and then it'll have subsections every time that card has been ruled, or what the ruling is and why, like what's the physics behind it. They do a similar thing in Transformers with the rules roundup. Right. So that would kind of be like the light version of what it is that I feel that they need to have, so that you do have a one-stop shop. Because I myself, I'm not an expert, but man, I've logged some time trying to figure out exact anatomies of a turn, anatomies of a battle action, what happens if other things trigger and it's in between. Do these things get put on the stack, and if so, when? And determining who does this, that, and the other thing. Lots of people probably won't get into that depth, but it's definitely impactful. Like, it'll have some basic questions. Hey, if I do this with this character, how does it affect? Do I get a second turn? Do I get a blah, 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 whatever? There should be a comprehensive rules section where every ruling, every one of those rules roundups are cataloged and put into the Wizards Play Network page. That would eliminate some of that business right off, because I'm certainly not going to the internet to ask questions about rulings, because it's an awful experience.
Yeah, and I think the rules roundups that the Transformers trading card game posts, it's typically weekly, is all based on asked questions, so that you can email into the Transformers support email address with a specific question, and they will answer it for that case. So every week there's something similar to what you're talking about. And I know they've talked about putting together something that's a little more of a catch-all for situations that are very similar.
Who do you think the target audience is?
The target audience is anybody who wants to buy it. They know. I wrote a short thing for my old job about the target audience of trading card games. The adults typically don't interact with the brand outside of playing the card game. The kids, teenagers, they interact with the television show or comic book or whatever, and then they also play the game, which it goes hand in hand with how toys are marketed. So
Right.
this franchise has been around for 35 years.
Yep.
So you've got me, who was in Beast Wars and watched reruns of the Generation 1 series. So people who watched it in the past are gravitating towards it. They've got disposable income. Hey, there's a trading card game. I watched this when I was a kid. That also aligns with the people that started playing Magic back in 92, Sean? 93? Yeah. So I think the target audience is kids, and in quotes, but then also it's the collector, the enthusiast, the person that's going to buy the Energon edition tomorrow, the person who has the disposable income that watched this show many moons ago and collects the figures and so on and so forth. So I think there's probably more adults than kids that are playing this, in a long-winded answer.
Yeah, at a business perspective, I also say that card games are unique, that they can be said that they're marketed towards kids and they're marketed towards adults. There's something, about them that's weird that I've noticed even since Magic, that they say, oh, it's a kids game, but when you really go to like competitive scenes and stuff, you're not seeing, hardly any kids in any as the top players or anything like that. And with the rise of card games and esports, and like especially with Magic had a big push of becoming big kind of like non-sports kind of sports game in the late 90s, early thousands and stuff. With Transformers, it's also the same. They can say, hey, we market it to kids. It's a Transformers. Every kid loves Transformers. But then you have the people that's my age that love Transformers as a kid, who also played Magic growing up. Hey, I know card games, or they played Pokemon, or they played Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like, hey, now we've got something that I like from a kid that's got a card game, and look, it's even thriving. It's in 4 expansions now. Competitive scene is thriving and going. So I would say at first the game was probably marketed more towards kids because it was in Walmart readily. Now Walmart doesn't even sell the single packs now. So it's real weird. Transformers is real weird. They want to market it to everyone, but since it's still so new, they have to market it to everyone. They can't find a niche.
So this is where the reason I asked this question is because I kind of felt it would be different. There are, when I think about a target audience, I almost think about it the same way I look at as priorities, right? We all have jobs, right? We all have bosses. They all tell you, hey, this is your priority, and this is also your priority, and this is also your priority, right? So then what I've realized over the years is if you have 3 priorities, you have no priorities, right? A priority is a number one thing. Right. I look at that the same way as I look at this target audience business, right? Because if you wanted to market this Transformers TCG to an audience, right? Because you only have X amount of dollars. Like Hasbro only has X amount of dollars. If they wanted to market it to kids and make it accessible for, let's say, 8 to 14, right? I believe that's an age group. 8 to 14, then you're going to market that in a different way. That's going to be in like these YouTube videos with those influencer people who all these kids open up all this stuff on, like my kids watch that crap all the time. That's where it's going to be advertised. It's going to be advertised in, the 3-foot level at the Toys R Us store, or not Toys R Us, but Target and Walmart and all that stuff. for this game, from what I've seen so far, they want to move. They're using the TCG business model. They're moving booster boxes, right? And I don't care what type of parent you are. You could be the coolest parent ever. You're not buying your kids $100 booster box off of a whim, like typically, right? I just went to that release event for this past the set that came out, Wave 4. I personally bought a box. A guy with me bought a box. There's a guy at the store who bought 2 boxes, right? So I have not seen any advertising for this game outside of, maybe some, I think every once in a while, Facebook, who spies on me, will tell me about some type of Transformers thing that's happening, but that's pretty much it, So I have to say, through all of my Wizards advertising that I'm involved in, I guess, that they send to me, that's where I typically see that. So it seems to me like their advertising or their target audience is the 18 to 35, right? Demographic male who has disposable income, and then they have packaged it in a way that's also friendly towards the Fringe, right? The Fringe stuff. So the cartoon show, which I haven't seen that new cartoon show. I'd like to check it out because I always did enjoy Transformers. And then whatever other toys or games that they may have popping up, I don't even know, because that stuff isn't advertised to me, because for whatever reason, I am targeted for cards and events, probably because of the way my shopping history and the way that the algorithms determine, like, this is the type of person that I am. And I haven't seen a whole bunch of targeting of younger people. So it feels disingenuous when they say, hey, we're targeting this towards kids, but we're not actually doing any advertising where it would impact, kids. Like, I have 2 children. I haven't seen nothing that tells me, hey, these kids would like this for Christmas. And Christmas is right around the corner. So
yeah, and I would imagine, thinking back to when I was a kid, the people that are playing a trading card game that are in the 8 to 14 age range are probably playing Pokemon. They have a Nintendo Switch or a 3DS. They are playing a Pokemon video game. They're watching Pokemon on TV, or they're watching people on YouTube open Pokemon stuff.
Exactly.
So if their parents are buying a trading card game for them, it's Pokemon cards. And if they're not playing it, they're just collecting the shiny cards and whatever, looking through them. So then there's the 10% of the people that aren't playing the Pokemon trading card game that watch Transformers, or they're into cars, they're into robots or whatever. And there's the card game. I saw it in the aisle. I'm not posturing or positing how a kid thinks nowadays with the difference in media, but back to my original point, it's if the audience is us, which obviously we're playing it and we're talking about it, so it is, and there's people that listen to this podcast that are probably around the same age group.
Thank you, supporters.
Yes, I think the main thing I was trying to get at was, is the environment welcoming, regardless of who's coming in to join it? And I do feel that there's a large group of the people that are part of the community that are welcoming of others, create an environment that, and I don't want to say safe space because that's an overused term that comes with its own connotations, but you don't want everybody to come in and think like that you're a jerk, or, man, this is not a welcoming place to be. I'm spending my money and extra time here. I would like the community that I'm a part of to be a welcoming one, regardless if it's for kids or for parents or for newbies. I think, what would I want to experience? And name calling and all that stuff, and not to say that occurs, but
I was going to ask. I was like, what forums are you on? These people sound like douchebags.
No. Yeah, there's definitely not any name calling on the things that I'm a part of, but you can definitely just like any community, you find some caustic type conversations going on, and just was wondering what you all thought about that, and if it comes with the fact that it's just the target audience or the people that are playing it. That's just how we are. That's what we're like.
So I'd say a lot of that toxicity really comes into like the bigger like threads. I've seen like on Facebook and Reddit. Usually, everyone's pretty welcoming, and then you don't really get into the nasty stuff until you get a little post under the big rules changes and stuff like that. Yeah. So usually a casual player don't really won't click into those. So for the most part, they'll see welcoming and people trying to help and grow the community as much as possible. And of course, everyone also immediately directs people go to your local Facebook groups to find casual group area local groups and stuff, because that's how it was with me coming in. That's why I went to Facebook on the local group, then went a couple of times, and touching on the rule book thing too, I've learned a whole lot of stuff that just about the basic rules going to the local group of people who's played before than someone who just had the little 5-paragraph play in action, play a thing, and attack. I'm like, oh, okay, wow, that's real in depth, guys.
Yeah.
Their thing was, if you really want to play, go to this YouTube page. And I'm like, what? I gotta watch a YouTube video to get the basics?
Yeah,
I was so disappointed in that too. Yeah,
and that's very disappointing too. And I thought maybe the Energon edition would come with like a little rules roundup mini magazine or something, or
comprehensive rules edition.
Yeah, that's what they need. Even a starter deck needs that these days. Devastator didn't even have that. I was like, come on, you're making a combiner starter deck, guys. You need a little bit more than this one-page this card size leaflet. Yeah. So that for a casual player, was frustrating to me starting getting into it just because of the lack of rules that come with it. Mm-hmm. But as I started getting in, you find that at least the community is halfway decent until you want to start getting into the real competitive stuff, and then you can find some some toxic people or some trolls. I troll people every now and then, so it's fun to poke at people every now and then too. But not the newbies. Poke at the other guys who think they're the they're the rules roundup guys, and like, oh no, come on, man, I ain't rule lawyer today.
Yeah, and I think for those listening, it may seem like I'm describing a community that's like no fun to be a part of. That's not at all it. It was more of what was everybody's thoughts on the community, and when things like Daring Escape, the card that was released in Wave 4, which is a alternate means of ending the game. There was a lot of conversation about that as a mechanic. There was a lot of conversation. We're 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks since the game's been released, the Wave 4 game, and we've already had a ban because of a combo that came out. Multi-mission gear was banned. A lot of heated discussion. Do you ban the cards? Do you ban the rulings? Sean, I know I saw you talking about an errata. So healthy conversations, different opinions. Please have them and express them in an open forum. I was more getting at being respectful, and it's hard to read tone over the internet. Many of our bosses will probably say that when we send emails or whatever. But yeah, I think to get off my soapboxes, for those of you that are part of the community, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, any social media, if you're a content creator on YouTube, even though I cringe when I say the word content creator, just be mindful that we're a year in, we are stewards of this community, and just be mindful of that. And whether you're competitive minded or you just build decks and fishbowl them at home, or you go weekly, just be mindful of the way you communicate online, and that's it. I'll get off my soapbox.
And
Speaking
we hate
of,
you.
yeah, and we hate you.
And we hate you.
So rolling into the banning situation, I know we've talked about when Press the Advantage got banned. We, had a party and it was great fun. But what do you guys think of banning cards, especially this most recent one, which to me the card itself is not a huge offender at face value?
Yeah, as I was saying, like on the Facebook group, it's so far we have 2 cards banned because of the same rule, and it seems, it only seems that this card was realized because of Daring Escape. And it's like, okay, so why don't we just, errata those cards that says that you don't get re-triggers on it? It doesn't re-trigger every time. Because that's what it comes down to. And, some people argue, well, you got to change the whole rule. And it's like, no, you can just errata those cards. I know WotC is trying to say they don't want to have like a, card erratas for Transformers. They want to try to keep it as simple as possible. And what's on the card is always on the card. And that's how it is. But, if you're going to start having, card bans, then, put some erratas, errata it or reprint it to where, let's get swap parts, only let's have in parentheses, does not trigger, re-trigger, and does not re-trigger anything, or, with multi-mission gear, just put a ban on it that says it only counts when it's, played or something. You don't have to ban cards, and you don't have to keep, even a rule that is causing card bans every, other set. It seems like, just because of that ruling. Magic's done it. Let's either do the rules, do the individual ban, card erratas or reprints. No reason to actually go to full-on bans first off. That's just my thoughts.
I'm thinking maybe the rules team has something right in the works, right? Maybe with the physics of how the game works, if they were to make erratas or changes now, it would affect something going down the line. I don't know. Kind of like that what is that the business with that cars equipment, the one that lets you re-rate it. What is that? Turbochargers, turbo boosters, where they had went ahead and just changed the ruling on how that works now. It's like it no longer stays on if you flip it and it's not in card mode, that type of thing, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean, it's a tough, it's a tough look, right? Like I don't know what the answer is because I don't even understand, honestly, the multi-mission gear. And maybe you guys can explain it to me, like I'm a 5-year-old, because I hadn't seen the combo.
It kind of triggers an infinite kind of loop thing to where you get the multi-mission gears and the Daring Escapes. If you know what that card does for each Autobot you have. Well, the whole thing is you get a couple of specialists with the multi-mission gears, and then you're, as you're re-triggering those multi-missions, your Daring Escapes keep coming up as the free action. So then you take away, the cards from the game and that, and everything. And it's.
But how do you get multi-mission gear onto another specialist?
Private Red Heat.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Red Heat acts as the swap parts.
Got it. I see.
Yeah.
Or you could even just errata Red Heat that says, does not re-trigger. You can swap them, just doesn't re-trigger.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like there's not. Red Heat is the only card right now that allows you to swap upgrades. Am I wrong in saying this?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
I haven't found another one. Yeah.
Yeah. So if an upgrade is moved from character to character, it's only initial play. and that's it. I mean, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The only cards that would be confusing would be the Wave 1 cards that say put instead of play. So, I don't know, Jetfire. There's a few cards that come to mind that say put instead of play. So
Hunker
put,
down.
yeah, hunker down. Yep.
Oh, this is ridiculous anyway. Just I hadn't seen Private Red Heat before,
Mhm.
but the super easy one is, hey, X tap like every other reasonable, card with that type of ability has. Like the reason that this is a problem is because you don't have to tap this card in order to trigger this ability. That's the reason that this is a problem, right? And you can do it more than once per turn, but still, the fact that you do not have to tap this card in order to trigger that ability, that's your issue. There's a problem right there.
It's a lot of issues, but the best thing to do is I'll just ban the card.
Yeah.
Which and multi-mission gear is a good card for special, and it's one of the few cards that's for specialists that are actually good.
Oh, never mind. You do have to tap it. I was just reading that wrong. It says scrap a white card from your hand, choose 2 of your characters.
Yeah, I think it is a tap ability.
It is a tap ability. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't seen it in action. I'll have to Google it.
Yeah, like you said, Sean, I mean, what was it? Multi-mission tool or multi-tool, specialist card from Wave 1, multi-mission gear. There's a couple of cards that have come out since. I think it was reactive armor. One of the armors is a specialist. Specialist
like
against a different
covert
type,
armor or something.
Yep, covert armor. So, yeah, it's a bummer that card now, if you're just running a specialist deck or a deck with specialists in it, and you are running that because you got to do what it does, which is extra, you get +1, and then you get to play in action. So that was cool, but now since Daring Escape exists, that part gets cut. And I could see why they wouldn't just outright ban Daring Escape, because they probably spent a lot of time thinking of an alternate win condition, and they don't automatically want to just kill that. It'd be like if Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like, oh yeah, Exodia.
Yeah,
no more Exodia, actually.
They would be turning like Transformers into Magic at that point. It's like, oh, we just released a set, and 3 weeks later we got to ban this card. I've seen that where they had to limit cards and ban cards just weeks and a couple of months or so after expansion release, just because that card, the play testers didn't see something with that card. You give it to the nerds, and they are going to mathematically destroy your game.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do. As soon as there's card spoilers that start coming out, they say, okay, here's the cards that already exist. I've seen these cards, and they just start crafting and crafting and crafting. They don't want you to tell anybody about it if you are their buddy, and you're like, oh man, that's a crazy broken combo. It's like, if you talk to anybody about this, I will shank you.
And then I'm gonna go to the best tournament around. I'm gonna win that thing, get me a box or 2, and then it's gonna be all over the internet. And then that's when it's gonna.
Hey, I don't blame them. I do not blame them.
I love it. I hope that happens, because it was just like, I think somebody who did that specifically is like, hey, I figured out something is broken. I wanted to go play. And going back to what Cam was talking about before, the more that happens, the more people will pick up the game and become interested in it, because it'll get that kind of publicity. Oh my God, did you hear this thing? This cool thing happened with somebody at some event. What's this game? I want to go and check it out, so.
It also goes back to like for me, like the Pokemon cartridge games on the SP, the Game Boy SP and everything, but the EV training, the freaking nerds turned what should be a normal little fun Pokemon game of catching monsters, and had me to the point where I'm like, all right, I gotta get my Macho Brace, got 100 up to 100 EVs, then I can start training, then I gotta start eating berries, then
you gotta give them calcium and protein and berries.
And then they're showing up with, Pidgeys and absolutely destroying everybody at, Toys R Us little tournaments and meetups and everything. Yeah. And it's like, oh, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love that stuff, but I also kind of, I'm like, damn nerds, couldn't you have given us like 2 weeks?
Nope, I love it. I love it. And it makes me interested in playing, even back then. I was like, man, what happened here? What they got some buzz going on and something crazy happened. Oh, I want to get in it. I want to get involved.
Yeah, I'd say I'm for bans as long as they're killing degenerate play styles. If there's something that can be done as a one size fits all and it's good going forward, and then you design with that in mind, whatever that solution is, I think it's the best, especially since they determine what comes out next, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. I'm for bans as long as they're for good reasons. Press the advantage, perfect reason to ban it. A way overpowered card. Swap parts, multi-mission gear. You can just make a simple errata. So, I'm for bans, but I'm also I'm only for bans as long as they make sense. And these two don't make sense to me.
Yeah, unban, don't even unban Press the Advantage. Re-release it as a star card.
Yeah, or a no pip card.
There you go.
Making it fishable was the worst thing they could do.
I do appreciate you guys listening. This has been Brandon, Sean, and Cam over here bringing you the latest news from the world of Transformers TCG. I appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining the Double Pipcast, and we'll see you next time.
See y'all later.
Later.